At the end of last year, I made a foray into the world of board climbing with the Moonboard, and it was somewhat a baptism of fire. Small holds, a steep board, and stiff grades. At first, I got completely crushed by even the easiest of problems, but eventually, things started to come together, and I really started to enjoy the Moonboard. I also really noticed how it improved my climbing. One of the most repeated comments on that video was, try the Kilterboard next. So that's what we're here to do. We want to find out what's the difference, what's the same, which is better. First, let's talk about the similarities. Both the Kilter and the Moonboard are standardised boards with hundreds of holds that light up to show a boulder problem and are controlled by a smartphone app. So, providing the angle is the same, you can try the exact same problem in multiple different gyms. Both provide steep, tensiony board style climbing that is designed to increase your finger and core strength. Both are expensive and both are popular, particularly with strong climbers. So, what's the difference? Let's find out.
Today we're at the climbing hangar in Edinburgh, which is an absolutely incredibly huge and amazing bouldering gym. And amazingly, the climbing hangar in Edinburgh has a Kilterboard directly next to a Moonboard. And if you'll notice, both the Moonboard and the Kilterboard here in Edinburgh are fixed. So the Moonboard is at the pretty standard 40 degrees, which is what most problems I think are at. And the Kilterboard, I thought was going to be at 40 degrees as well, but it's not. It's at 50 degrees. So the Kilterboard has like a huge range of different like options. I've not seen on the app on the Moonboard anything steeper than 40 degrees. But the Kilterboard you can go to 55, 60, and there's problems at all those different angles. Today we're going to find out what it's like for a relative newbie to board climbing, how it compares to the Moonboard. What's more accessible, what's more fun, what do I prefer? Let's find out. Apparently at 50 degrees you can get V0. I like how fast it changes colour. Like, is it changing behind me? None of this. Cool, so these are all V0s. Oh, this looks complicated. First timer. That seems like a apt name. Right, I got a brand new pair of shoes. Got unparalleled flagships. I've seen a bunch of good climbers climbing these. They're extremely stiff and also extremely small. I have to size up from what I normally buy in like Scarpa or La Sportiva. What do you think, audience? Should it be this sore? Should I size down? Or should I just size up? Right, let's try V0. Plenty of footholds. Whoa, jeez. I mean, I flashed it, but don't feel like V0. That's awfully steep. Let's do one over here. This one, completely different part of the board. The board must be like 10 foot, 8 foot wide. This is on the completely different side. Starts with an undercline. So what I've been told is green is for your start, yellow is feet only, and blue is both. So you can't do like that. You can have to do that move, which is quite interesting because the Moonboard doesn't have that. The Moonboard just lets you do what you want. I think you can actually mark it as feet only on the Moonboard as well, but the Moonboard I've been training on doesn't have the LED to actually show that because it's a different colour. And then match on this. Oh, it's so fun to be able to warm up on flash board climbs. Like, that would never happen on the Moonboard. On the Moonboard I have to warm up on completely like other boulders before even trying on the Moonboard. And even then it's like a whole day session just to get one V4. Immediately, like way more accessible than the Moonboard, right? Like the fact that, I mean, I definitely don't think that doesn't feel like a V0. It feels more like V2, right? Or V1 at least. But at least it's like something to warm up on, rather than just starting at V4, which is already so sandbagged on the Moonboard. So yeah, I like it. Well, we'll bump it up to V1. We'll go nuts.
Before we get too crazy, a quick word from this week's sponsor, Frictitious.
For the past couple of months, I've actually been dealing with a tweaky finger. It's from a pulled lumbrical in my hand. So I've been doing my physio and it's going in the right direction, and part of the physio is a little bit of hangboarding. Now the thing about physio is it's really, really light, but I have to do it twice a day. So can you imagine how much of a nightmare that would be if I didn't have a hangboard in the house? So this is my Frictitious Megalith, which is a wonderful hangboard. It's got a huge selection of edges and a mono and a jug right at the top for pull-ups. It's also got this raised bump in the middle for actually deloading the two middle fingers and increasing the load to your index and pinky fingers. But the critical part is the hangboard is mounted to the Frictitious doorway mount, and that allows me to install and remove this in under 30 seconds without leaving a mark on my door frame, and that is really, really important. It comes flat packed with the board installed if you so choose, and it can be assembled in like 5 minutes, and all you need is a screwdriver. You don't need any other tools, and then to actually mount it onto the door frame you don't need any tools at all. You just use these hand little dials at the back to tighten it up, and it can be removed really easily. I've been taking this doorway mount on and off this door frame for about a year now, and it hasn't left a single scratch on the frame. So the deal is, if you buy the Frictitious hangboard and the doorway mount, you'll get 20% off the entire order. You don't need a drill or anything like that. You just need a screwdriver to assemble it, and to install it you don't need any tools at all. So follow the link down in the description. There's no promo code or anything like that. Just pick your hangboard and the doorway mount and your 20% discount is applied. Thanks very much to Frictitious Climbing for supporting the channel for a long time now. Really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
From being used to the Moonboard, right, this starting position on the Moonboard would be hard, because this would traditionally be crap on the Moonboard, but this is like a total sinker. So you can like hang off it, you know, and make a mistake. I've also noticed that the easy problems, they just bail on the kickboard and they start like almost standing up. It's like here I'm fully stood up before I leave. So the problem is shorter as well. Never thought about setting a problem on the Moonboard that starts higher up to make it easier. The app is way snappier, way better. And I just pushed the button and it just, look at this. This is what I'm talking about. Look at this responsiveness. That's all we want, Moonboard. A little bit of responsiveness. Oh. I needed to think about that a fair bit, actually. I think I need to... This is a big move. Oh. Yeah, way more intense. That's V1. But really nice though. It's just so nice to be able to like do some warm-up problems and not be like max difficulty.
The most obvious and welcome, for me, difference from the Moonboard is the inclusion of jugs on the Kilterboard.
Every so often there's just a mega bucket. Like crap, bucket, crap, decent pinch. Good hold. Like fantastic undercling.
Of course, there are still many tiny crimps, slopers and pinches that are horridly difficult, but the board is so big, being both longer and wider than the Moonboard, that there's enough space for some big, comfy jugs to be included. This means that climbs can start at V0, although at 50 degrees they do feel very hard for that grade. Whereas on the 2024 Moonboard, the easiest grade is a hard V4.
Time for a V2, step it up. Gavin's route, 5C, V2. Nah, that's not good, I'm not even gonna try that. That was a quick shutdown from a V2. Let's move on to another V2.
Bumping the grade up to a modest V2, I was met with a brutal difficulty spike that had me double checking the app.
So V2's the limit.
I never thought I'd say this, but the these boulders are even more sandbagged than the Moonboard.
Pulling back on from that is going to be brutal. Right, this one's called Lefty Lucy. Apparently this is the best 5C at 50 degrees. Nah.
But they weren't all like that.
This looks like so... Am I being daft? But this just looks way easier. Like, I'm not pulled on, but this has got to be easier than the last one, right? Yeah, like, how is that the same grade as the other one? Surely not. The grading's wild. The grading is absolutely wild because that was 5C V2 as well, and that was easy.
One of my favourite things about the Moonboard is working my way through the benchmarks. These are problems that are curated by Moonboard moderators that are supposed to represent a high quality for the grade. Although there is a variation in difficulty between, say, the V5 benchmarks, it's supposed to be somewhat reasonable. However, I couldn't find any analogue to the benchmarks for the Kilterboard, so I'm simply sorting by the number of ascents, and I believe the grade displayed is simply the grade that gets the most votes from the community. So there are a number of times where, according to the app, the problem is actually easier at a steeper angle, which doesn't make sense. So yeah, inconsistent is the word that comes to mind here.
Lament of the Steep V4, which seems very incredibly high feet. Oh, maybe. So there's this move here, and you have to throw all the way over. And I'm just trying to decide which way I want to go. I don't actually really know how to do crossovers. He seems like a crusher. Oh, he went for the underclimb. Groove. Oh my god, he's amazing. I think I could maybe swing into that a bit more. Yes! Yes. Well, look about V4 internet. To be honest, the start's really easy and it's kind of a one move wonder or two move wonder. So yeah, V4 seems fair. Am I becoming a sandballer? Am I becoming a sandballer? I can't believe how much easier it is because you're not thinking as much because you can actually see which hold it is when you're above the hold. On the Moonboard, you're like, right, remember that one's for your foot, and once you're above that hold, you can no longer see the light. I think you can set on the Moonboard so there's a light above and below the hold, but this is just way easier and quicker to see. So there's like less memorization, which is kind of a good and a bad thing, right? Because one, your brain has to work less hard, but two, outdoors you have to memorize what your foothold is, and everything looks almost identical. So it's kind of more like outdoor climbing with a Moonboard because you're using your brain a bit more. But for like just a fun session, it's so much easier just being able to see the light. And I'm amazed that this part where the LEDs come in through is actually still textured, like usable hold. It's interesting.
To have a full comparison, it'd only be fair to set a boulder on the Kilterboard as I did this on the Moonboard. Creating your own problem is extremely easy, just pick the hold you want and choose whether you want it to be hands and feet, feet only, starting holds or finishing holds. The zoom in feature here is a godsend. The difficulty comes from choosing from the 476 holds to build your problem. But once you're done, give it a name and a grade and publish it to the community. This V2 I set is called Are You Better Than Mike Boyd? Because I'm that narcissistic. It's set at 50 degrees. Shamefully, I didn't flash this, so if you can, you're doing better than I am. Give it a try. So, from a noob's perspective, how does the Kilterboard compare with the Moonboard? Well, for being essentially the same concept, I experienced some meaningful differences between the two boards. First of all, the bigger, taller, wider Kilterboard means you can start problems standing up and still get a few moves in, and because there are more holds, it allows for the inclusion of jugs. Both of these features combined mean that the Kilterboard is way more accessible for people who are climbing at below V4. At 50 degrees, I'm not sure anything can be V0, but climbing on the jugs is perfect for warming up or for newer climbers who want to try board climbing for the first time. If you're not yet climbing at V4, the Moonboard will simply crush your soul. It takes absolutely no prisoners, whereas the Kilterboard holds out its hand and says, "Come, try me." I would say past V3, the grades between the two boards felt about the same difficulty. V4 for me feels hard on the Kilterboard and hard on the Moonboard. But at the low grades, the Kilterboard is all over the shop. V2 can either be a complete ladder fest or a dino to a slopey pinch. The grading is wild at the low end. Which brings me to my next point. The lack of moderators and benchmarks on the Kilterboard seems perplexing to me. The benchmarks on the Moonboard app really drive me to improve, train, and revisit boulders that I get stuck on, and they feel more meaningful when I do get the send. I think benchmarks are a good way of tracking progress, but with the huge variation in the grading on the Kilterboard, it's really hard to understand where you're at. In terms of design, the lights on the Kilterboard are simply superior. It's easier and faster to see where to put your feet. The little LEDs on the Moonboard are just more difficult to see. The Kilterboard app is also just better. It's snappier, has less bugs, and is less of a conundrum to operate. The ability to zoom in and set boulders is such a simple and obviously missing feature from the Moonboard. The Moonboard is a Bluetooth connection disaster and a buggy mess at times, but it does work, it does do what it needs to do, it's not that bad. But what about that je ne sais quoi? What is better to climb on? Well, I just think the holds on the Moonboard are brilliant. They're awkward and unique, and you can learn how best to use them just like outdoor climbing. There's wooden ones and plastic ones, and each set has a different feel to it. Their peculiar design makes them feel more like I'm climbing on rock. The Kilterboard holds feel more symmetrical, predictable, and well, for lack of a better word, more boring. But I feel like they are more friendly to your finger pulleys. Which one is better? Well, it's 100% a personal preference. They're both fantastic training tools. But I think maybe that's the wrong question. The point I want to make is, with board climbing once a week, or even less than that, I feel way stronger. I would encourage you to try climbing on a spray wall or a Moonboard or Kilterboard if you haven't already tried it. For me, I just lacked so much core strength, and the boards really work in making that part of my climbing better. It's one of the few improvements I can actually feel after just a few weeks on the boards. I would say that if you're new to this, like me, keep an eye on those fingers though, keep the sessions light and short to begin with, and if you're not climbing V4 yet consistently, give the 40-degree Moonboard a pass for now. Seriously. Okay, but which one would I get in my garage if it came down to it then? Well, without question, I'd get a plywood spray wall, cheap second-hand holds, and 3 holidays to Fontainebleau. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you next week. Peace.